All right, and welcome to, this is the last thing we're learning in this unit. And we're going to be looking at triangles that are overlapping. For your do now today, you should be finishing up with F2, F4, and F5. That's proving triangles are congruent. So we learned several different ways to prove that triangles are congruent. Now we're going to put it all together. And the hardest part about this lesson is going to be splitting the triangles of interest apart. So if you have two different colored pens or a colored pencil or a marker, I suggest you use two different colors because it makes it that much easier. All right, so we're going to prove overlapping triangles are congruent. So remember, when we're doing a proof, the first thing we want to do is read our given statement. So we know that MT, I'm going to get my select tool here. MT is congruent to NT. SM is perpendicular to RT. So I'm going to be thinking about a right angle here. RN is perpendicular to TS. Yet again, another right angle. And now I want to prove that SM is congruent to RN. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we have. So the first thing we have are our three given statements. So I'm going to hopefully just move this right here. That's our given. Next, and again, I have a reasons bank down here. It's not always going to be the case, but I'm going to use it here. Now let's look. I've gone ahead and separated the triangles so I can see them as a whole unit, but then I can also see them separated out. And I see that angle MTS is congruent to NTR. Okay, and so I can see that that angle of interest is this one right here. And they're overlapping. And so whenever we've got an overlapping situation, I can say that this is going to be the reflexive property. All right, SMT is a right angle and RNT is a right angle. Well, that plays into this situation right here. And it's the definition of perpendicular. So, but because I know that these two are right angles, we can say that right angles are congruent here, because now I'm saying they are congruent. And a triangle has a right angle, it's a right triangle. And now I can say that right angles are congruent. And now it says SMT is congruent to RNT. So now we're looking at the two triangles. And so what we've marked up, let's go ahead and mark up our triangles. So it said MT is congruent to NT. So this side is congruent to this side. MT is congruent to NT here. And then it says that these are perpendicular. SM is perpendicular, so we've got a right angle here. And then this right here is a right angle. So we've got a right angle here and a right angle here. Okay, so we've got right triangles. The right triangles are congruent. And now the last thing that we have to prove that these are congruent is this angle here is congruent to this angle here. So this looks confusing, but I see angle, side, angle. And so here we go. If I mark it here, angle, side, angle is the proof that says that these two triangles are congruent. So I'm going to slide that in here. And then lastly, SM is congruent to RN. So now we can say that this side here is congruent to this side here because we've proven the right triangles. So we can say that corresponding parts on congruent triangles are also congruent. So as you can see, it's much easier to see the congruency when you look and you pull the two triangles apart. So make sure that you're thinking about doing that. All right, let's look at this example here. Sorry, we're going to try some more of these. So proving overlapping triangles are congruent, once again, the first step is we're going to separate the overlapping triangles, which you can see I've done here. Again, it's much easier if you trace it in the different colors first and then pull it out. And then it says, are the triangles congruent? If so, state the postulate used to state the triangle congruent. So we've learned 5 postulates: side, 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 angle, 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 side, or HL. So you're going to choose one of these to prove that they're congruent. So let's go ahead and mark up our drawing first. It says WX is congruent to ZY. So I'm going to mark up on this triangle here and this triangle here. And then it says angle WXY is congruent to ZYX. So WXY, this one here, is congruent to this one here. Now I'm going to check this original drawing and see if there's anything else that overlaps. And I can see right here this XY overlaps on both triangles. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it here, XY, and here. And what I can see is that these two triangles are indeed congruent, and it's going to be by side, angle, side. So I would say side, angle, side. Okay. Go ahead and try the next couple and come back and see if you're struggling with pulling the overlapping triangles out of the picture, or if you're struggling with making the markup. Please raise your hand and ask a question. I'm going to go ahead and move forward at this time. All right, so here's number 2. Once again, I've pulled the triangles out. Notice that I do label the vertexes because that's going to make it important. So the first thing I'm going to mark is that AC is here, and it's going to be congruent to DB, which is here. That was given information. All right, the next thing I'm going to mark is that this angle here in the purple triangle is a right angle, and angle C in the green triangle is a right angle. And then I'm going to look for anything that overlaps. And so when I look here, I can see that this side right here is overlapping. So both of them have BC in common. And what I notice is because this is a right angle, this is my hypotenuse, and this is my leg, I can say that yes, in fact, these two triangles are congruent because of the hypotenuse leg postulate. Okay, let's move forward. I see these two triangles once again. My given information is that angle L is congruent to angle O. So I'm going to go ahead and mark those up. And then I see that LMN here is congruent to ONM. Okay, so I got that. Now, once again, I'm going to check my drawing to see if there's any vertical angles that I might have missed, or I can see that this side right here is overlapping. So I know because of the reflexive property that this side is going to be congruent to this side. And what I notice is I've got an angle, and a side. So these two are going to be congruent by angle, angle, side. Okay, for number 4, again, I labeled my vertices and I pulled my triangles out, and it says that AC is equal to EC, so I'm going to mark that with 1 tick mark. And then angle A is congruent to angle E, so I'm going to mark that with an arc because it's an angle, not a side length. And now once again, I'm going to look at my drawing. Is there anything that I am missing? Okay, now I don't see any sides that overlap except for this part here and this part here, but I can't mark half of it. But what I do see is this angle right here is included in both the green and the purple triangle. So therefore I can, I'm going to do 2 arcs here and 2 arcs here. So I can say that angle C is also going to be congruent. And now I can see that, again, these 2 triangles are going to be congruent by angle, side, angle. Like so. All right. This told me, when I first looked at this picture, I saw so many triangles, but this told me the 2 that we're going to examine are here. So I went ahead and pulled those out. I could mark this up with a right angle, and I can mark this one up with a right angle. And then I can also mark that AC, which is here, is going to be congruent to BD. Okay, so again, I'm going to look at my picture. Are there any, I see this line right here is overlapped with 2. So what is that? AB? AB is congruent to AB. And again, that's going to be the reflexive property. And I can see now that because I have a right angle, I've got a leg and a hypotenuse. So I'm going to call this HL. So some people are going to think, oh, I don't want to do the extra step of pulling the triangles apart. It really just takes 3 seconds, and it really does make visualizing this so much easier. So I strongly suggest you do that. All right, at this time, your homework is numbers 6 through 9. Your reasons bank is over here. So those are the reasons you're going to use, and remember, you get your statements from what is known in the picture. So I strongly suggest you highlight your triangles, pull them out, and go from there. For each of these problems, you'll see the reasons bank is there, and then go ahead and complete IXL if you haven't done so already. If you have completed IXL, I can give you the review sheet because your test is next week. All right, I'll be back with answers in a minute. Right, so this was just 3 quick statements, and we can prove these 2 triangles are congruent. I pulled them apart first, give my given statement, and then notice that this was the overlapping piece, so that was reflexive property. And when I looked, I noticed it was side, angle, side that proved these 2 triangles were congruent. Right, so in this case, I pulled the 2 triangles out. And first I was given this information, so I wrote that as given. And then I noticed this overlapping piece right here of BC. So I knew that both of the triangles had that in common because of the reflexive property. And then because angle B here and angle C here are right angles, I know that these 2 triangles are then right triangles, and they can be proven to be congruent by using HL. I just drew arrows here. For you, you'll have to write the information in the given line. Couple more to go. Hopefully this is getting easier for you. All right, so I'm starting to get really good at this, so I did not pull these 2 triangles apart. I tried to do it on my own, and I noticed that after I marked my givens, I noticed that this was also going to be overlapping this side right here. Both of those triangles have that particular side in common. So I noticed that that was going to be the reflexive property. So now I can prove the 2 triangles are congruent by using angle, angle, side. So to prove that LM is going to be congruent to ON, that's this side here and this side here. Well, if I know they're congruent triangles, then I can use congruent parts of congruent triangles are congruent. And so those are my 4 reasons for this proof. All right. I believe this is the last one you have to try on your own, and pause the video, work it out, and then see what happens. Okay, so the first thing I did was read my proof, and I labeled my givens. So the very first thing here is this information is given, so that's my first reason. Then I noticed here that angle C is overlapping in both triangles, and so because they both have that one in common, we call that the reflexive property. Now I can prove that these 2 triangles are congruent because I've got an angle, a side, and an angle. So that would be angle, side, angle right here. And lastly, I can say that the other 2 sides of the triangle are going to be congruent because congruent parts and congruent triangles are congruent. So go ahead, this is your exit ticket for today. Please do this on a separate piece of scrap paper. Work it out and turn it into me. And then you also need to be working on IXL. All right, so good luck studying for the test, which is going to be next week.